secret society of master distillers gets together in hooded cloaks, and they vote you in. Well, you lay on a table with the upside down star.
And the hoods are brown. For
bourbon. Soaked in the whiskey.
Yeah, exactly.
That sounds more like waterboarding. Anyways,
welcome once again to Chill Filtered, the podcast where we drink whiskey so you don't have to. But you probably should. You probably are. Let's be real. And that's why we like you guys. But we like you guys for a lot of different reasons. Great, fun episode today. We're celebrating episode 350. That means almost 7 years of Chill Filtered throughout the years, throughout the states, throughout the whiskeys. Can you believe, I won't get into that. We're full of tangents and stuff, but it's crazy to me to believe that we have had 350 whiskeys, more than that, because sometimes we do multiple whiskeys an episode.
True.
So that's pretty crazy. But we got
one episode where we did 8 whiskeys.
That's right. Yeah, I walked away from that one slowly.
I didn't walk away from that one.
Yeah,
I rolled away from that one.
Yeah. We have one of our favorite head distillers of all time, and we've had a few. We don't, we've had master distillers and stuff, and that's cool and all. But head distillers is where it's at.
Yeah,
is that still your title?
That's still my title.
Okay,
cool. You're blowing smoke. No. We should really talk more about that 350, man. That's really amazing. Congratulations.
I appreciate it.
7 years. That's great. And the amount of content is really wonderful. So
I appreciate
congrats.
that. Yeah, I appreciate it.
I've only been around for 70-ish.
Yeah, just about 70, 80.
Slacking. So how long before you hit your 7 years then?
Yeah, what does it take for me me to become
another 5+ years?
Podcaster.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Is that what my title should be? Master podcaster. Yeah, whiskey podcaster. Yeah. No, but yeah, it's great to be here. It's great to be here on site at A. Smith Bowman. We've got in front of us. We've got the A. Smith Bowman Cask Strength number 4. What is that? 139.7.
139.7.
10-year-old.
Back to the 10 year.
Yeah, we talked about this last time. Last year was 9 year, and you were hoping to get release 4 to back to 10 year, and you pulled that off. But then we also have Abraham Bowman, the American Oak. How does it go?
Yeah, so it's Oak Series, right?
Series.
Oak Series, and this Oak Series release is American Oak.
That's sweet.
And yeah.
Okay.
Awesome.
First question. The Abraham Bowman, it's obviously a different label than the other Abraham Bowmans from years past, like gingerbread, the vanilla bean or whatever ones and stuff like that. Are we continuing on that path of just series now of Abraham Bowmans?
Do you mean the Oak Series, or do you mean just the actual look of the bottle?
So before it was kind of random. You're getting sequential fills, you're getting Sweet 16. They were all just completely out of nowhere.
Oh.
And this one is a part of a series now under the Abraham Bowman label. Is that to continue? I know there's probably going to be a third of the Oak Series. What do we got?
All right. So about the Oak Series, you're right. As long as the idea behind Abraham Bowman is that as long as I stay in the vein of whiskey, I can release any kind of experimental thing we're doing. So whether that's a mash bill, whether it's a finish, whether that's a different type of oak aging in. So that's how we've kind of distinguished that from our other brands and our other SKUs. And so for the Oak Series, what we realized when we looked at our inventory of all the barrels that we had coming, that we had some that were aged in different types of oak. Totally. And so we're like, well, why don't we try to put these together in some kind of sequential order so it's not as random? Now, do I have some random stuff coming up that does not fit within that?
That's really my question.
Yes. And so the idea here is that, we'll just continue to look for other oaks around the globe, I guess, and see what we can find and see how long it can go. But I know for this one or for this period in time of Abraham Bowman's, that we do have the Oak Series coming out.
Nice.
Or we're in the Oak Series, but to be honest, we're still changing things up and trying to do the best whiskeys we can.
Yeah, and the Oak Series might continue for the foreseeable future. I had the number 3 in my head somehow, but it's not necessarily just going to stop at 3 or 2 or whatever.
It sounds like you got a few oak varieties on the mind.
That's exactly right. Yeah. I mean, you think about the type of trees, right? So we could play within that. We could play with the different types of oaks. We could play with the different countries. We could play with the different, well, I don't want to give away too much of what I'm going to say here. Let's see. We can play with a lot of pieces that, as long as it involves an oak, we can keep it in that series.
Nice. Oak boxes
That's
instead
right.
of barrels.
Squares, triangles.
They'll stack better.
When you introduce corners into the whiskey, it really brings out the. No, I don't know.
Or like large format, right? I wonder if that could also be in part of there, right? So if we did different sizes throughout and started doing oak series of that.
What if the barrel house?
I got to write this down.
Yeah. What if the barrel house was a barrel house?
Like a gingerbread house, but an oak house that you fill through the chimney?
Yeah, dude, yeah. We're on to something.
Pour it on like a big batch.
We're just going to add that to the experimental list.
That's right.
Oak house.
Yeah. But underline house, because it's like the whole house. Yeah.
I'm trying to think. There's, the crazy thing is, there are a lot of quercus, oak varieties, but apparently some are not good for.
Correct.
Like red oak?
That's right. Yeah. There are some that you need to stay away from that don't do well and don't age well. There's also some that are too porous, right? So there's varieties out there that are maybe not an oak, but other wood varieties that are too porous. I know a lot of people have problems with like Mizunara, right? That one's very porous and sometimes can be hard. There's other styles, so you just got to be careful or not careful, but there's all kinds of things you can play with in that species.
Yeah, nice.
And I don't know if you can tell this, but typically on like a batch, how many barrels do you put into an Abraham Bowman batch?
Well, it's really hard to say because it just varies. Now, again, all of this that we're releasing was done prior to myself being here at A. Smith Bowman. I've only been here I'm coming up on year number 3. And so a lot of this juice that is being done or being released was of the prior master distillers. And so that was Joe Dangler, Truman Cox, and Bryan Pruitt. Yep. And so Bryan Pruitt had a heavy hand in what's coming out for that Abraham series and the cask series, because all these barrels were Bryan's. And so I just have the honor to be able to blend these together and try to put forward what I think Bryan, not that I'm not talking to him, but what I think Bryan would want this to be, and try to showcase his great ability to distill and make alcohol.
That's dope.
Yeah.
And then we also have, like we said, the Cask Strength batch 4.
Correct.
And so
brand new. Lottery's going right now. Now,
that's right. Signed up already.
Can't remember what date this episode comes out, but the lottery goes until March 3rd, correct?
Corrected. It closes on the 3rd.
And it's announced the 5th?
And then you give us one day to make sure that there's no errors or anything in the list, and then we'll send out the list of people that won the opportunity to buy a bottle.
Yeah.
And so that is, and then once that window closes for pickup, then we'll take the remaining cases. That's only percentage that we keep here for Virginia, and we'll send the rest of those and do limited markets throughout the rest of the United States.
Cool.
So you won't see if you happen to not get the ability to buy a bottle, you still might see it in your state or in your area, but I don't know what the limited market is for the distribution of it. I just know it is getting distributed nationwide once we close the window off.
Yeah, that makes sense. And feel free to sip if you want there while I. Back to the volume of casks for Abraham. You've got 375s of old releases. I imagine the number of barrels that influences whether it's a 375 or a 750, or I assume that's the case.
That's exactly right. You try to think about how far you want it to stretch and how far you want it to get and how many people you want it to try. Sometimes it does make more sense to try to get it in 375s to try to push it to get it that far and to get the ability for more people to try it. And there's no standard for the volume of barrels that go into a release, right? So it could be, we've done releases that are 1 barrel, and we've done much more larger than that. And it really is whatever that experiment was looking at and what that opportunity was. So I can't tell you, this American oak. I know how many went in, but like there's no telling that. Oh, well, that one was a standard 9, and the next one's gonna be a 9. The next one's gonna be a 9. There's no idea.
And there's no plan for you to like. We want to be growing our batch sizes on Abraham's. That's not necessarily the case. You're just going to do whatever makes sense and works well.
No, you're right. I am. So I looked at what the current we have laid down, and I'm like, I think people would get really upset if I only release 1 barrel.
Yeah.
So I need to do larger experiments, but that takes much more time.
Yeah,
that makes, or not time, but time on the still. Much more fermentations, much more risk is involved when you're doing 1 barrel versus 101 barrels.
Yeah.
And so I do take that in consideration now when I'm doing these experiments to say, all right, what do I expect? How many barrels do I expect to get out of this? And do I think that when I release it, will that be enough volume for the group or for to be pushed out?
For sure.
Because I do not want to make it so incredibly hard that there's only 300 bottles, right? Because it's going to make it. No one's going to be happy if they're never winning over and over and over and over. We try our best, and it's just tough.
The infamous cider cask, was that just 1 barrel?
That was one that turned out really well. That actually was never released.
I remember.
And because of that exact reason, it was just so few bottles that we had available for that.
More ticked off than excited.
That's right.
About it.
That's right. And so you will see that for donations to try to raise money for different charity causes. That will be the only chance you will have to be able to purchase that cider cask one.
That's cool.
And the donations, like when there's a national disaster or something.
Absolutely right.
The cabinet reserve back there, bottles come out of
Why
that.
are we talking about that cabinet reserve?
There's no place. There's no vault.
We have a
It's definitely
retain.
not buried under the front sidewalk of the entrance.
It's actually just David's trunk. What am I talking about?
We do retain. I try to keep a good retain of the releases we do, so we can go back and taste those throughout and make sure that we're doing the right and we're staying on the right track. But also for those kind of events, for donations, and for the ability to continue to help out the community and everyone else.
Yeah.
One of the things I love is in the gift shop, or not the gift. Yeah, it's like gift shop / front area of the distillery. Entrance. Is you will see all the Abraham Bowman releases behind this little glass cabinet. I think it's pretty cool.
And you will see them behind a sticker that says "Not for sale."
Yeah. Do not ask about this.
We had to put that sticker that says "Do not for sale," and so that's right. The majority, I think, all the Abrahams that we have are in that case. In sequential order, and we started putting our cask strength.
Nice.
So once the announcement came out that we're going to put 4 out, I think I put that one in there.
Nice.
So the cask number 4 is out there as well.
Some of them are bottle 1s, if I remember correctly.
They all should be bottle
Oh, that's
1s.
cool. That's awesome.
They all should be bottle 1s.
I love
if
that.
I'm doing it right.
So I remember, this is a little bit of a detour, but last time you were talking about your experience in New Orleans and working at the Sazerac house, is that what it's called, Sazerac house?
Sazerac House.
Yeah.
Correct.
And so you said that you had a hand in aging and distilling, and I don't even, maybe fermenting as well, some of the Sazerac standard release bottles, but they were all done in Louisiana. Do you know how that's going?
So that house started up 7 years ago now, right?
Ooh, more than 6.
Is that right? 7? That could be close. We
I
could be
believe
close
you
to
said
there.
6 last time.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
So I think we're at 7 right now. So what happened there was I came in and helped facilitate the build out of the distillery and train the team on making rye whiskey.
Yeah.
And you're right, at that location, they do the fermentations.
Nice.
They do the distillation. They do the stripping runs. They do the rectifications. They do the barreling. It all happens at that distillery right there.
That's sweet.
And the reason that it's done that way is so that when you do visit New Orleans and you go see the Sazerac house, you can walk into that distillery and talk to the guy that's right there and be like, no, I'm a guide, but I'm also here to show you this is what I do every day. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to throw these grains in. I threw these grains in this morning. I'm going to pitch the yeast. This is the smell. And so when you walk into the Sazerac house, you get that overwhelming smell. When I was there Sunday. actually.
Nice.
And you could smell that he was doing a stripping run.
Nice.
And so I was like, oh, let me go see what the guys are up to. And be like, oh, what are you up to? You stripping? And he's like, yeah, I'm stripping right now, and we're going to rectify tomorrow. And I was like, oh, that's great. And you can smell it right away.
Nice.
So it doesn't smell like a typical, like you're walking into a hotel or you're walking into a museum that has like a signature scent. That scent is the fermentations rolling and the distillations and everything going through, which is really fun.
Well, in typical episode fashion, we are entry buzzing today. And in honor of your working at the Sazerac house, the glass that does not have tape on it, is 2024 Sazerac 18.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. And then now, have you had both yet?
No, I have not. Or yes, I did. I did have a sip of this one as well.
So the tape is actually, let me double check the date on this. The tape is actually a tanked Saz 18 batch from 2007.
Dang.
That's really delicious.
So this is tanked Saz 18 versus last year's Saz 18.
Tanking for like, I want to say 9 years or something like that.
It was a long time. Yeah.
Did you know about that?
No.
So Buffalo Trace did such a big batch in somewhere between 2000 and 2007. And they were still aging. I don't even know how it was, but basically they just tanked a ton of Saz 18 in one of those years, and then used that as the release for I want to say around 9 years.
Oh, really?
Until probably, I want to say 2018 or something like that.
I mean, you really got to look at what the barrel's doing, and when it's ready to get out, you got to get it out.
Yeah,
exactly.
Because you run the chance of it going too long. And becoming over oak.
You're already at 18 years.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
it
turned out pretty good.
Harlan knows what he's doing over there.
Yeah. So, how tight are you with Harlan? Like, do you talk to him every now and then?
Yo, Harley!
yo, my dog.
I don't know if I call him on a cell phone.
No,
We talk. We talk often, so we have obviously monthly meetings.
Nice.
My direct supervisor is Bryan Pruitt.
Gotcha.
So obviously he has a strong understanding of this location.
Totally.
And so I run a lot of stuff by him and make sure that I'm doing the right thing and on the right path. And then we also bring in Harlan for certain conversations that we do as well. Whether it's, hey, did you try this next release, and what do you think your tasting notes are on there, or if you have ideas about this. But it's a good collaboration, and being part of Sazerac, it's kind of nice to have that backbone and that experience behind you. So if you do have questions about, this fermentation's turning sideways on me, or have you ever done, I don't know, I'm going to throw this out there, not that I've ever done it. Have you ever done an all oat fermentation? What happens there, or something crazy like that? It's like, well, I tried this, and maybe you should think about these. So, him, Harlan, Bryan Pruitt, Danny Kahn, all those guys are really, really smart and really great resource that we have available to us.
Nice. That's cool.
Is Danny Kahn at Barton?
He was, and now he's at he's like Bryan. He oversees multiple facilities.
That's cool.
But I think he does oversee Barton and others.
That's cool.
Large sites.
So let's get into one of these.
Yeah, sure.
But I do have a question. We're talking about master distillers. We're talking about legends in Sazerac.
100%.
And Harlan and Bryan, and I'm sure Danny, have been around for 20 years probably plus.
More, yeah.
Yeah. And they have a different title than you do.
Correct.
What does it take to become a master distiller? Because before you answer, it is kind of cool, and I respect that they don't just willy-nilly hand that out. It seems so. So yeah, like is that a goal of yours? I imagine so, to be a master distiller title. But yeah, tell me about that. Yeah.
So to
sweet.
The title master distiller, let's see. I'm not a master distiller. I'm a distiller. I do aspire to become a master distiller. There is not a set path to becoming a master distiller. There's no, hey, if you go to this class and pass this course, you can become a master distiller. If you do this many blends, push-ups, or whatever, then you can become a master distiller.
A secret society of master distillers gets together in hooded cloaks, and they vote you in.
Well,
you lay on a table with the upside-down star.
And the hoods are brown. For bourbon.
Soaked in the whiskey.
Exactly.
That sounds more like waterboarding. Anyways, So the
Whiskey boarding.
The whiskey boarding.
That's gonna be the quote.
To be honest, I mean, if you buy a still, get a license, get all the regulations, and start putting out distillate, you can call yourself a master distiller, right? And so I don't. As far as I know, there are not certain milestones that I need to hit to get that title. I think it's really about experience. Yeah. It's about showing knowledge of what we're doing and what we're producing here, and showing the ability to make good spirit.
That's cool.
And so I'm continuing to work towards that, continuing to try to get that title, and continuing to show my knowledge base and try to keep everything under control and not lighting on fire.
Yeah, don't blow up any stills.
Yeah, right. Does someone else have the authority to grant you that title, or
That's
is it
a
something
great question.
that do you make that decision yourself? Like, based on my releases, I truly believe that I have come this far.
Like, do you get knighted? Is the question.
By someone.
Yeah.
Or yourself.
I think it's however you want to do it. Now, within Sazerac, no, I cannot give myself a new title.
Yeah,
I wish I could. Like, senior actuary,
someone at Sazerac would need to promote you.
Correct. That's what would have to happen. Cool. But I think if you were in your own distillery and you were like, you know what, I don't want to be considered master distiller yet, but then at a certain time period and you thought that you had a good confidence in it and you did whatever you thought would require that.
Makes sense.
Now, I can't speak for every distillery out there, so maybe there is another company or distillery that has certain things that you need to do to get that qualification.
Yeah, I'm sure Scotland does, or I don't know. They got a lot more blenders. Or master.
That's
blenders,
right. Over in Europe, there's a lot more blending or master blenders, and that they like to have that title. I think that's a very prominent title over in Europe. They do have distillers, but I think blending. Yeah. But that's also an incredibly challenging piece, just like that cask strength, because we're blending different lots together to make it, and you do see how challenging blending is, or you learn how challenging blending is, and how you have to be very specific about the barrels that you put into that, or else it can go sideways really quick, and you have to kind of correct it, and it's tough.
Yeah, I bet.
So that comes down.
And actually, real quick. Yeah. I was gonna say I would have just gone right into it and picked one, but I would have picked like a younger one or a lower proof one. But these are both about the same. Do you have a recommendation for what you'd like us to take first?
I mean we can. Let's start with Abraham, the American Oak, because that's and then we'll go to cask strength. And again, 135 for that.
Ooh, beautiful. Okay, so theoretically, we've talked to one of our other favorite guests to have on is Nick Taylor from Found North. I don't know if you heard of that brand.
I've not met him yet.
So
for you,
have you heard of the brand?
Maybe half of that.
Very good.
Yeah. I have not.
So what they do is they take Canadian distillate, usually very high aged. I'm talking 18 plus years, and then they blend. And he's been through like a lot of iterations of that, and he says, and he basically proves to us, yep, that's the one. He basically proves to us that blending is like no joke.
It's hard.
Yeah, and so like you say, you like maybe we start, hypothetically we start out with like 30 barrels, for a release. How many of those are discarded in a Abraham or a Ace with Bowman release, do you think?
I really couldn't tell you because you're opening them up and you're tasting each and every single one, right? You're trying that and you're like, what do you think is going to happen here? What do you think is going to happen here?
Yeah.
Do you think this will work well with everything else that I got going on?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, really, it's tough. And so you can lay out all the barrels and you can dilute them and you can try them at a good proof to get a sense of what that barrel's doing. But when they blend together and they have a chance to meld, it's challenging to think. Once this goes into once these two come together, what am I going to get? You have a sense, you have an idea, but it is an incredible art of doing blending.
Last time, batch 3. We're doing Abraham.
Yeah, Abraham first. Yeah.
Last time on the French oak.
French oak. Correct.
There were a certain percentage of I don't remember if
That's
it was
right. It was
proprietary.
charred and not charred.
Charred versus not
Yeah.
charred, and that's why it couldn't be called a bourbon
Mm-hmm.
because that uncharred was blended in. Is there any charred and uncharred shenanigans going on with this or anything like that?
If you look at it, it says bourbon, right? On the
Hey.
actual
Ayo,
thing.
answer
it has
there.
Oh, you got me.
So we
You
have
got
to
me.
like, and the I think not the label, but the actual embossed on it, right? It says right underneath Abraham. Keep going right there. Limited edition, straight
Ooh,
bourbon whiskey.
Bourbon.
So it's at least 2 years old too.
That's right.
Wow.
Everyone got that.
And yeah, so these are all charred barrels. This is again, this goes back to Truman Cox's experiment.
Nice.
The difference between like this and like a John Jay, right? Our John Jay is a 10-year-old whiskey. It's in our standard bourbon barrel. With these, it's a different cooperage that Truman brought in.
Okay.
So this is world cooperage.
Okay.
And so it kind of sets it apart from our standard bourbon barrel. These were a little bit bigger. I want to say these were 60 gallons versus our standard 53. So that had an effect to it as well. And then 12 years we let this sit.
Nice.
So this sit for 12 years prior to it coming out of the barrel. And we tried at different proofs, Bryan and I, and decided that 135 really is kind of where the sweet spot in this to bring these barrels together.
Do you remember?
And is it cask strength? So did you like blend in such a way that you got 135, or did you cut it at all?
We did cut it
Okay,
down.
cool.
We did cut it down.
Do you remember going up and down from there? What was the deciding factor in like a little more water, a little less water?
I think I tried it at like 115, and I think it just diluted. It didn't have as much body as what I was looking for. And so we were like, well, let's bring the proof up and see what we can do. And so, what I've noticed is that I really like the sweetness that comes through with bourbons, and so I try to chase that with a lot of the releases that I'm doing, and this is a good example of that. Like there is that sweet notes that come on the palate. It is hot, or it is high proof. It will kind of evaporate off your tongue on that finish, but it does have a nice coating, and there is some sweetness and not so much like heavy oak that I'm tasting. You obviously taste a lot of whiskey, but that's kind of what I'm going for after.
350 whiskeys.
That's
One
right.
more. Totally agree. I get a lot of the evaporative effect.
Yep.
I totally feel what you mean by that, and then what that leaves me with. The best part about this pour is the finish for me, and when after that evaporative effect, what lingers in my mouth is a pretty equal portion of baking spices and oak.
Yeah.
Very, very, and there's definitely tobacco leather stuff going on here too, and I'm in like purple fruit territory.
Oh, I can see that.
With the tobacco leather stuff, purple fruity, but it's all in balance because I get like a little of a tingling sensation from the spices along with all that savory stuff too. This is really good.
So I don't know if this is the 170 or 187 proof gin that I just tried speaking, but I do get a little bit of herbal, almost juniper-y. Am I crazy? I might be crazy. You can tell me.
I don't know if I've ever gotten juniper, but you could be right. I like that purple
Very
fruit
light.
note, right? It's hard to give these things and not lead people towards what you're going for, but once you say these things, boom, they pop in. You're like, oh, that's exactly what it is. That's exactly what I'm tasting.
Last night, sorry to cut you off, but we were at a bar last night and we were sipping. Oh, dude, we were sipping Daniel Weller at a bar last night, and after a while, the guy
One of
that
our
we
other
were sipping
bartenders
with,
comes in,
he was like, "Okay, wait, hold on." Grandma strawberry candies, and then as soon as you smelled it, you were like, "Oh my gosh, it's the grandma strawberry candies!"
Or even like the orange marmalade we tried the other. Like it was a release from Whiskey Del Bock out in Tucson, Arizona.
Yeah.
And someone was like, "Yeah, orange marmalade."
Boom, and it's like shatters. It's
Yeah,
like shattered,
yeah,
and then boom, you're like,
100%.
there it is.
Yeah.
And I take another sip, and you're like, oh, I see the juniper. I see what
Yeah.
you're talking about when you're tasting juniper in there.
But it's like
so it's very interesting.
in a very pleasant bourbony way. I love the level of sweetness on this thing.
This is a keeper. I actually prefer this to the French oak for sure.
Oh, thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
I try to do better every time. And so, this Abraham I was very happy with. I think it came out right, and we're excited for what we've got coming down the line. And the one thing I didn't talk about with Abraham's is that it's very hard to make these because you're trying to be creative, and I'm not only like the blending but the very beginning, right? So what are you going to do that you're going to experiment with, that you're trying to step outside the box of what everyone else in the industry is doing, and how do you try to push the limits? And so you really it is a challenging and it is a fun challenge to try to come up with something that you hope will turn out really well 10 years down the line, 12 years down the line, 6 years down the line, right? And it is hard, and it is, a lot of effort goes into trying to make this one of the best spirits we can.
Yeah,
That's great.
Let's get a little personal. And you don't have to tie this back to your direct product if you don't want to. But so you've released a French oak and an American oak now. What's your personal take on French oak versus American oak? Like in general, your personal flavor profiles. Did you find that one surprised you more than the other, or anything like that?
I think French oak was a good representation of what I was expecting to come from those barrels.
Yeah,
right?
Which was
cherry notes.
Nice.
okay.
Right, so I think that French oak is typical cherry stone fruit flavored forward. This American one, I was expecting it to be closer aligned to what our John J. Bowman single barrel whiskey comes out tasting ish like, and was surprised and kind of happily delighted that there was a difference at this than what we've tasted before out of our barrels.
Yeah.
So it was kind of interesting, and kind of the fun aspect of it, like we were talking about with the oak series, is that you can change where those barrels were made and even who made the barrels, and then boom, you got a whole different taste profile that's coming across out of that whiskey and out of that bourbon.
Yeah.
Another detour. I have ADHD, so it's fun.
Ready?
You mentioned, I don't know if it was off the record last time, but I know it wasn't a secret or anything.
We're about to find out.
Yeah. You mentioned how certain barrels, in the warehouses or anything like that, will age easily, not easily, but more easily than some other places in the country, to hazmat level. Do you know why that is? That like Virginia or your warehouses in general might lead to like barrel exit proof being hazmat?
If I knew the answer, I think we would have a lot more people trying to copy that answer, right? Do I have suspicions? Well, we don't have typical rick houses, so we don't have as great airflow running across. We do have airflow, but we don't have as great airflow. Does that have something to do with it? Yeah. Probably, maybe. A lot of them are brick.
Yeah.
Right. So they're cinder block and brick warehouses. Does that do something to them? I don't know. And then, like, I'm coming in, right, 3 years in, so I see how much we move them around and what happens and how they go around. But there's probably something else that's going on in those warehouses that I just haven't keened in on and learned the effect of what it's going to do. Yeah. I know Joe Dangler stopped by before and we were chit-chatting and he gave me some ideas of why he thinks it's going. Nothing I want to talk about, but that's I'm saying, that kind of backing to have those old other distillers there helps. But there are ideas, but there's no definitive way. And like you see in that cask strength, we get very, very close to hazmat.
You did and I guess I'll pour a little bit of that too. You did mention earlier, it sounded like there was a little, I don't know if disdain's the right word, but in your voice when you said we almost got there. Did you really want to get there? Did you feel the need to get there?
Good question.
No. And so much so that I wasn't really checking the proof on that blend.
Yeah.
I knew the barrels, I knew the lots that I wanted to play with, and I knew.
Ooh.
Okay, better cork pop on the cask strength.
Hey, they're both good.
Yeah. Right.
I knew what I was looking for, so I didn't even check the. Sure.
New glass? Cool.
I didn't. I didn't chase. I'm not going to chase the proof.
Yeah, chase the taste.
I was going to chase the profile. I was going to chase what it
Chill
was
filter.
tasting like.
Chase the taste.
New motto. Yeah. Go ahead.
So I was tasting the barrels prior to being blended, and I was tasting the blend as it was going along to make sure it was heading in the right direction. And then when it was all said and done, I said, okay, let's run the numbers on it and see where we're at.
Yeah.
And then, boom, popped just below. And I was like, well, and then the question is, well, do you go looking for another barrel that can bring it up? And you can get to there, right?
Hazmat
Depends
is
on your-
literally
depends
on your
just
volume.
a rule, and 140 is literally just a number.
And so do you want to go for it? Do you want to, does it need to be 10-year-old, right? And so it was 9, and last release was 9, and this one was 10. And so does it need to be 10? Does it need to be 9? And no, I wasn't chasing proof. I didn't even look at it until, like I said, the blend was done. I liked the taste, and I said, okay, run the numbers. Let's go. Let's see how much volume we got, and let's move on.
I get the need, that there's not a need for it to be 10 years, but it's like, it's cool that if it's like a staple 10 years, like we always try to be 10 years. Like I totally get that. And last time for the batch 3 release, you blended in some 9-year barrels because you said the 10 years that you had a little too much spice, and you were trying to blend out that spice a little bit. How was the blending process on this? Are the 10-year now for batch 4, is it some of those same barrels so that you didn't have to worry about the spice so much when you were performing the blending? How did it all work out?
All right. I paid closer attention to what my inventory was going into this year. So I could look at when barrels turn 10 and when they could be taken out of. So instead of pulling, instead of being stuck at the end of the year when being like, all right, this is what I have to choose from, I tried to do a better job of pulling barrels throughout the year to reserve for cask strength based on what I was tasting they were doing, right?
They did mention in the press release continuous year-long tastings.
That's right.
So you were here 24/7 slamming barrels.
Slamming and spitting.
Yeah.
I was trying to get a better idea of what our total inventory for the year that was going to be 10 by the time I was ready to dump this was. And I think that on 3, I kind of let that get away from me. And by the time I hit the barrels that I wanted to be a good 10 years, I needed to go a little bit further down the line and grab some 9 to bring that profile up.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's the idea.
So going back a little bit to that idea of what I was talking about earlier of like, do you discard? And of course you don't discard barrels.
No.
What do you do with the barrels that went in a different direction at 10 years than what you expected? What do you do with those, like, maybe good, but maybe not profile fitting? Yeah.
Well, these are 10, so this hits John Jay's. So
For sure.
if I didn't think that it would make a good blend here
Single
and it
barrel.
would taste better at 100 proof,
Yeah.
I would the majority of the ones that were not turned into this blend would go into John Jay's. Or I could also do, not that I did, or maybe I did, have 10-year-old juice that I would be like, well, this barrel might be a lovely finish in something else. So why don't we take this 10, let it sit 2 years in this, and then turn it into another ABW or Abraham Bowman whiskey that is 12 years old.
Nice.
So there are, you listen to the barrels, and if it's not ready now, it doesn't mean that in the future it won't be ready. And so you don't want to just jump the gun and dump it and turn it into something else or blend it out. You try to give it its chance to get to peak maturity.
I've heard finishing barrels like that in hot sauce is pretty good.
Yeah. Especially for like 10 years at this point. Yeah.
We do have a hot sauce barrel.
I didn't know. I didn't want to say that. I wasn't sure if I should actually tie it to you, but
I doubt it'll be an Abraham Bowman release.
We do have a barrel here on site that we put on our tour path and show everyone. And so they did age whiskey or hot sauce in it and then put whiskey in it, and it didn't turn out well. But we keep
it going.
Yeah.
We keep it to show it's okay to fail.
Right. Yeah.
It's okay for it not to work out.
And if you sign a waiver, you can try it.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding.
it's not. It'll blow your palate out.
You won't be able to taste for a week.
and it's okay to fail, and we let it go. But we're still waiting for that hot sauce barrel to turn. It just hasn't aged up enough.
Around the 80,
It's
90
like,
year mark.
Around 80, 90, it's going to really mellow out.
Yeah, heavily peated whiskey where you're like, all right, it's hot, it's peaty to the max, but like you put a few years on it and it like cools down in a good way. That's what the hot sauce barrel.
Yeah, we're just going to let it mellow out
Yeah.
about 20-ish plus years, see what happens.
Yeah.
We'll go back and taste it in 5.
That's funny. So I know that Abraham Bowman has had, or at least A. Smith Bowman as a distillery, has had at least a 16-year.
Yep.
Have you exceeded that?
Not that I'm aware of.
Oh.
Wait, there's a
Sweet 16?
Abraham Bowman. Abraham Bowman release number 3 was 18 years.
Oh,
Was
you're
it?
right. I think it was.
Pretty
yeah.
sure.
I want to say it was up there.
Oh, hold on.
Alright,
Let me go.
you're-
Let me go to your trunk real quick.
You're-
We go to
That's right.
the
You're
thing
pushing
buried
my-
underneath the yeah.
You're pushing my history back here.
Nice.
I wish I had a complete reference for all of them.
All right. Well,
and
if
I
I'm
don't.
right, what do I get?
A hot sauce barrel tasting.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, I gotta know.
I know. Yeah, right, dude.
That's great.
I don't think I currently have anything super aged. We do have ideas for what we have on site right now for long-term aging like that. But again, a lot of the stuff I've tried that gets that far in age, I'm not a huge fan of. It really is going to take a special barrel and a special kind of mash bill to get it there, to get it to what you want it to taste like.
Yeah, there's a curve. There's a happy curve of whiskey aging, especially in bourbon. And I find personally that it peaks before or at 16 or so.
16, that's where you like?
I mean, Eagle Rare 17 is usually like my
Go-to.
one of my go-tos. Yeah, which is.
Yeah, I feel like between 12 and 18 is easily
But
like.
then after
sign
that,
me
you're
up.
risking things.
Yeah.
The risk goes
Like,
way up.
I better
as you
trust
probably
the
know.
distillery if it's
Yeah.
over. But yeah.
So now that you work for Sazerac and you have for a while, what do you know about Double George Very Stag?
Yeah, right.
So we have a theory, and you do not have to comment. We have a theory that 2021, where they forego the release of George T. Stag, that they are making. You know how it's Double Eagle Very Rare. So
Right.
we're assuming that Harlan decided to set that one aside, the barrels for George T. Stag in 2021. And in a few years, we'll be seeing a Double George Very Stag. So that's the
Just go like this.
yeah, exactly. Just wink at the camera.
It's not an approved question, Cole.
Yeah, exactly.
I love how much you think I know what happens over there.
Perfect
They do
response.
not.
Yeah,
They
exactly.
do not tell me what they're up to. I get to read it when I read the press release. I'm like, oh, that's what. Oh, that's a good idea. I wish that we had talked about that.
Yeah. And actually, speaking of, last time we were here, you said that your distillate from the Sazerac house, maybe someday, hopefully, could be in a release someday. Do you know anything about it potentially maybe being in a release someday? That you could be able to buy a bottle off the shelf and be like, I made this.
This one was a Louisiana rye.
Again, I haven't. They aren't telling me.
Yeah.
They aren't saying anything about what's happening to all that
Keeping me in the
juice.
dark.
Totally.
Like I said, I was down there this weekend and talking to them, talking to the distillers down there, making sure everything's going right and tasting good.
Yeah.
And we didn't talk about. I didn't even bring it up because it didn't even occur to me that it was aged up and ready to go.
Yeah. Would be about 7 years now.
Yeah. So that juice
Sounds
should
like
be
Sazerac to me.
that would be ready. But I haven't heard anything.
I was
And they
just
don't.
curious. Yeah.
So go ahead.
I don't think we've talked.
Yeah, I was just about to say, let's give some
yeah.
notes for A. Smith Bowman Cask Strength 4.
I think that the palate's a little drier to me.
I can see that.
I do get more richness, a thicker palate on the Abraham, the American oak. But yeah, this one stays more in drier and a little bit spicier palate. I think this it punches a little harder, and I think there's more to appreciate on the American oak.
Yeah.
I agree with that. I don't know if I prefer. Yeah, this is hard.
Do you want me to pour you a little more American?
Little more. No. Actually, pour me a little more A. Smith Bowman.
Oh,
Actually,
yeah.
just tiny bit.
Or the cask strength, you mean, or the
cask
strength?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's really a matter of preference at this point, where it's like, do I appreciate sweet cherry notes, or do I because I'm getting a little bit more cherry from cask strength, but I'm getting a little more, I guess, well-roundedness in flavor. The sweetness is a little stronger, as you were saying. Like the dryness shows up on the cask strength a little more than the Abraham.
Yeah, and especially on the finish, the fruit that you're mentioning on the A. Smith Bowman, on the cask strength number 4, I am getting more cherry fruit that persists through the finish.
On the A. Smith Bowman.
On the cask strength.
Yeah, I got
Versus the Abraham.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
And it's hard because it's like 135 and 139, right? And we're really close, and we're 2 years off in age, right? The Abraham's a little bit older, and they're both oak barrels, American oak barrels, and so it's a challenge to try to distinguish. But there is a complete distinction between the two blends.
There is 100%,
and it's obvious when you taste them what the difference is, and it's interesting that by blending those barrels and by picking those barrels, you get such a wide variety of change in it.
I was hoping you could deep dive a little more into the difference between the two, because American oak, was there a certain criteria that was chosen for barrels to go in the Abraham allotment?
There was. So it was an experiment, with this Abraham goes in line with the French oak experiment. And so Truman Cox set down French oak barrels with char and without char, and American oak barrels with and without char. And so he put all these down. And so this is the...
Right. No. I'm waiting for a
I know what you're gonna. I know the question that's coming. Because what did I do with the uncharred barrels?
Exactly.
Yeah, 100%.
They were not ready.
Okay, I'm down to hear that.
Right,
cool,
and so
cool.
when you don't char a barrel, it doesn't age
Yeah.
the same way that one will when you get that carbon on the inside of the barrel to polish the whiskey as it ages in and out. Right.
Yeah.
And so we looked at doing the same thing we do with French oak and taking those uncharred barrels and putting it in here, and it didn't work. And so
American oak.
And so there are barrels that we still have that are American oak uncharred. And now what I'm going to do with them is the question.
Yeah.
25 years.
Plenty of time to figure out.
I don't know, man.
But is it correct to say that when you had the French oak, charred and uncharred, and they were similar enough that you're taking proportions of some and proportions of other and blending together, and you're pleased with the result, is it safe to say that the American oak, uncharred versus charred, had a wider variation than what French oak does when you char it or not char it?
I think when I looked at the French oak, charred and uncharred, I think that they benefited from the blends. Benefited from going together. I think that standing alone did not help.
Okay.
When I look at this one, I think blending them did not help. I think letting it stand alone with the charred by itself did give a better product. And again, we're always going to put out the better product, the best product we can, the better one. So instead of trying to get volume and blend in a less superior juice distillate or whiskey, I would keep it together, or I would keep just the charred by itself, and then think of something else to do with this uncharred, or let it keep going. Or
I imagine the uncharred was like virgin still oak on the.
I believe so. And again, this is 12 years ago, and the distiller had passed away after 2 years, Truman, so we don't have a lot of notes on what the idea is.
That's cool.
Well, speaking of Truman, actually, the side note of recently I've seen a lot of hubbub about a Truman Cox release. Can you expand on that and what that release was exactly?
So Truman Cox was when Sazerac purchased the distillery. The first distiller they brought in was Truman Cox. He was from Buffalo Trace, and he started here, and he unfortunately passed away after about 2 years here. and then they brought in Bryan Pruitt and then myself. And so we did commemorative bottles for Truman. And so we had his first barrel, and then we had one named Jaden after his daughter, and an Emerson one as well that was in that collection. So those 3 bottles were in that collection. And we recently stumbled upon these bottles, and I was like, all right, well, let's get them out and sell them and let this product be out there, versus just sitting there getting dust.
That's cool.
And so one weekend I was like, let's go. Word got out rather quickly, and they were just scooped up as fast as possible.
For sure.
I want to say within like 2 days or a day and a half, almost just all gone. So we
Sadly,
have
I'm
nothing
not
else
surprised.
like that.
Yeah.
It was literally just a random
Single barrel.
stuff that we had. And so please don't come looking for another Truman bottle.
Yeah.
I don't have any, and that was just what we had.
Fair.
That's super cool.
Yeah. Any other lessons learned moving forward now? Batch 5. No, I remember we talked last time about how long the blending process takes, and you're doing 24/7 round the clock tasting.
Tasting every 15 minutes.
Is there anything that you'll continue with your workflow moving forward, and anything new that you'd like to begin with Batch 5?
I think, it's Bryan's juice. And I think that as he got more comfortable, the juice continued to become elevated. Not that he was ever putting out bad stuff, but I think the barrels that I'm going to have to be able to choose from for 5 are going to be superior than 4, which were superior than 2, which were superior than 1. They all had their own elements, but I think that
superior in what way?
Tastiness.
Yumminess.
I don't know. How do you? I mean, y'all make a living out of describing what is tasty, right? And so it's really tough for me to be as eloquent when I try to say what I'm looking for in barrels and what I want to pull out of that barrel. I have in my mind's eye what I'm looking for and what I want it to taste like and what I'm aiming for and what I'm shooting for. And so I'm like, but for me to sit down like this and say, what I really wanted this to be, or what I really want this to happen, is a little bit more challenging. So I am looking forward to 5, and I will say that going down to 9 is not out of the question. Now hopefully I don't have to, but again, I think I'm gonna continue this year like I did for batch number 4 to taste throughout the year and be like, no, I want to reserve these and then we'll release them for that cask strength blend. So I think hopefully, like I said, it's a learning experience. I'll continue to try to produce really, really good juice.
Hey, you are.
And if you ever need help with tasting and putting words to things, just send some.
Yeah, if you ever need a second opinion.
I'll just send you a small little bottle and be like, what we got?
Please.
What are you sipping on?
You're like, this one's more yummy.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
Boom, nailed it.
Yeah. Hey, and that's the funny thing is we talk about all this and everyone's different. Every single whiskey taster is different. And but I much prefer, you mentioned your attraction to sweeter or that kind of stuff. That's my go-to. We have some of our listeners that reach out and they're like, I don't always like the mash bill number 1 or number 2 sweetness, like cherry, apples, baking spice, those kind of things. And I'm like, dude, I'll take the Sazerac mash bill any day. I mean,
it's like peat level, right? Like what's your tolerance on peat? Yeah. Right? Some people are like, give me that cigar smoke. And then others are like, man, I need to tone it down and get less. And so it really is a matter of taste. I try to hit a good space here. I think these aren't exactly super, super sweet. There is some spiciness in that cask strength that doesn't show up in the American oak. So I'm not completely ruling out that piece of it and what it contributes to it. But I do have an idea of what to strive for.
Yeah. And as a summary of the tasting between the two, that spiciness, it's easily interpreted, in my opinion, as heat. Just I do think that this comes across punchier, a little spicier, a little hotter, and the Abraham Bowman tones it down to the shaking spice level. A nice tingly spice, a richer, thicker mouthfeel on the Abraham.
Yeah.
But because the mouthfeel isn't as thick on the cask strength, it lets the fruit shine through more. So it's a little thinner, so you get a little heat, but you get a little fruit at the same time. It's easier to see the fruit through the thickness of the mouthfeel of the Abraham. So,
Oh man, I'm sending you an NDA, and I'm going to send you some samples.
We'll be like, we'll tell you this one's really yummy.
Yeah. Yummy from 1 to 10 is
It's
like
yummy in my tummy.
9.4. Yeah.
So I will opine, I guess, on my opinion.
Nice.
That's a great way of putting it, I guess. I think that I don't know if I can choose, and maybe that's okay. But I will say the difference is they're both fantastic, and we don't give typical ratings when the distiller is on.
Oh,
No, but I mean, yeah, it's no big deal. But
please don't feel like you got to right now.
I'll say this: they're both incredible and delicious and yummy in my tummy to the max.
Yeah, right. Nailed it.
But the beauty of the two is that they are similar. Both American oak, both bourbon, both 10+ years. I think the beauty of the Abraham Bowman, the American oak, is that the notes, like the palate notes, are a little more spread out. I think the A. Smith Bowman Cask Strength is a little less spread out, but a little more potent. So I think if you want something, like if you had the choice, if you were at a liquor store right now and you're like, what do I choose, Abraham or A. Smith Bowman Cask Strength?
If only the world existed where
Sitting on the shelf.
Yeah. And but I would say it really comes down to preference of, do you want a little more spread out notes of fruitiness, or do you want a little more punch to the front? They are both fruity. They are both punchy. But I think if I were to separate the two, little more sweet on Abraham Bowman, a little more fruity on Abraham Bowman, a little bit more straightforward and cherry forward on A. Smith Bowman Cask Strength. But both worth getting. So if you are at the store right now and you're wondering, what do I buy? Buy both.
Googling real quick.
Yeah. Buy both. Yeah.
Were you about to say something?
No, I mean this one's all gone. American Oak's all
So
gone.
buy A. Smith Bowman Cask Strength.
I don't think this is for sale anywhere
Yeah.
that I know of.
Yeah.
This is gone. This one's about to come out, so no one's
Perfect. So no one's
had
in
it.
that situation right now.
That
Unless
you might
they're
be able to find.
way overpriced on the shelf right now.
I
Yeah.
know, right. Some store.
So
that's
don't buy it
marking
if
up.
that's the case. Yeah.
I scrolled through my questions that I thought of randomly over the last couple of weeks, and the last one that I would love to just pick your brain on is the decision to release French oak at 100 proof and American oak
Great
at
question.
135. I know, obviously, you're trying to put your best foot forward with your product, and you want it to be delicious. I guess what I assume from this is that it's less of a science experiment and more of a
Yummy in my tummy experiment?
Yeah, yummy in my tummy experiment.
It's easy.
Because I would have figured, if you really wanted to showcase and be able to taste A versus B to try to pull out different notes and things, I would have assumed you to release them at the same proof. So what kind of went into the decision process of doing French oak at 100? And, if the answer is just this is where it is the best, obviously, I want tasty whiskey. So that's totally fair. If that's the
Yummy
case.
whiskey even.
That really is it. Is that this is where it's the best.
Nice.
Cool.
We tried, like I said, 110. I'm sure we tried 100. But to be consistent in proof was never came to mind.
Yeah.
Never came to mind that we should try to make it a comparable contest. Like I would hate for this to be a contest between all Abrahams to be like, oh well, this one was really the top winner of everything, and this one was the next, and that's not the plan or the point. It really is just to push the boundaries on what we can do with whiskey, what we can do with oak, and what we can do. The only thing that I would ever try to do with proof wise is I had to handwrite these.
Oh, nice.
This is actually my handwriting.
Oh, wow.
Not all of them. I had a team that helped.
Yeah.
And I would definitely make it the proof an even number, so I didn't have to write that 0.5 because writing that, like when you write so many, your hand starts cramping up. And that would never.
Have you ever seen The Jerk with Steve Martin?
Yes.
$1.09. There was like a class action lawsuit, and he has to write out like a billion checks for the same amount, and he's sitting at his desk like $1.09.
That's exactly what it felt like, right?
Yeah.
Because you're writing it over, and you're like, why didn't I just make it 136?
Yeah,
I don't write this 0.5 over and over.
So,
but besides that, no, I would never change proof just for ease of handwriting.
I noticed that it was handwritten because I screwed this one up a little bit. When I poured this, it dripped and down here, and then when I rubbed it off, it smudged over here. You can still read it. I
You might need to take it home now.
Yeah, if you need me to dispose of this,
It's the little touches we try to do. The little touches.
It is very, very pretty though. And dude, I mean, new label this time around.
Yeah.
That's right. New label.
Okay, I'm not going to focus, but that's
It's, and like I said, the last one didn't say bourbon because they're not all bourbon.
Yeah, right.
So if the next one we come out with is not a bourbon, it'll say something different.
Nice.
It'll be a different bottle.
Yeah.
But we had some limited edition straight bourbon whiskey bottles, and we were able to put it out.
Will every Abraham Bowman have the embossed special release here from now on?
Going forward, oh man, that's a tough one. I gotta think about that. I believe
obviously
yes.
not.
I believe yes. That
Because if it doesn't, I'm not buying
it.
If I see it on the shelf.
Yeah, get out of here.
Because I think with the new neck tag, the next label, that this special release comes with it. Cool. And I want to say that's what we're going to try to do is this neck color with this special release with the really pretty gold look like that.
Yeah, cool.
To try to stand out.
Yeah, that'll make people buy it.
Yeah.
That's right. The shininess.
Yeah.
We really want it to be shiny.
Yeah, right.
All right, last question before we bring it into the hopes. Any regrets lately on any whiskeys, on either one of these, for example? Anything you wish you had? Man, I wish I had done this because they're bottled, they're out, people are drinking them.
Yeah.
You know, they're great products. Don't get me wrong, but like, do you wish you had done something different?
Oh, every time.
Really?
Every time we open it up and I taste it, I'm like, I bet I could have done better at that. I could have done more to elevate the path that I wanted you to be led on.
Could you have? Legitimate, like could age or blends improve what you were doing?
I think so. I think if I, could I have done it better? I think so. I think there's always room for improvement. There's always something I could have thought about more prior to going into these blends, prior to picking this proof. You're always searching. You're always trying to do good product. And I think I'll continue to beat myself up about what this tastes like and what I could have done to make it better and make it elevated.
Dude, sounds like a master distiller to me, man.
Yeah.
No, that's
Promote this man. It's like Seinfeld where they're like, hire this man. You know what I'm talking about? George Costanza.
That's funny.
No, that's great. I certainly hope that sound I put of the water bottle on the table wasn't too loud for the microphones. But I also hope that I don't know. I hope that your confidence gets better every release.
Oh, thank you very much.
Because it's well deserved.
Yeah, this is
thank you
very
very much.
good bourbon. Yeah, and I hope that you feel good about your decisions. Not that you don't. Like you said, you beat yourself up, and I'm very into that. I'm very big on that. Yeah. But let me tell you right now, this is quality bourbon, like top tier bourbon. Yeah.
I hope that people find their way out to Fredericksburg.
Yes,
because
Pennsylvania County, baby.
this facility is gorgeous,
It is cool.
man.
Yeah.
And you drive through a sweet gate, and you drive across a bridge, across
There's
the
a
reservoir
river.
to get
Yeah.
in here.
Train
Like,
keep run, yeah.
I hope people find their way out here and check it out because it's really cool.
It's very pretty. We're kind of tucked around woods, and it's quiet, and we have like a fox that runs across in the morning.
Do you have a name for it?
Not the fox. I think someone named it. We did have
Truman.
Canadian geese, and the Canadian geese was gin and tonic. And then somebody saw a river otter, and I was like, well, we got to come up with a new name for the river otter.
That's so cool.
That's how you have a healthy river, is you get otters in it.
Heck yeah.
So we have all kinds of wildlife that kind of doesn't go in the distillery, but runs around the parking lot. We're like, oh, that's so clever.
That's so
So it's
cool.
really pretty to come out, and it's a pretty sight. And yes, please come see us.
Yeah.
And I hope to add 20 pounds to my back squat this year.
Hey, clean gain, baby.
And we do well with all the
Yeah,
releases and everything goes well. But
right.
man, 20 pounds of back squat would be really great.
You should just start lifting barrels.
Dude, yeah.
550 pound
Yeah.
barrels. trying to
Abraham
back squat.
Bowman,
Yeah.
these barrels were squatted by.
Do you know how much like a full barrel weighs?
550 pounds.
550 pounds.
So how close are you?
Oh, I'm 150 pounds away from
Oh,
that.
getting there.
Wait, even more than that.
Yeah.
I didn't care
I was
what
like,
happened.
Dang, man. yeah, squatting and that's great. But most of all, listeners, we hope that our love of whiskey lifted your spirits. What do you know about Double George Very Stag?
Yeah.
What do you know about Double George Very Stag?